Hey, John, I had a question about if you get a warning versus a ticket, you can't do anything with data queue to fix that, right? But you still get dinged with CSA points.
All right. So citations and warnings affect you the same way. Reason being is this. If I go to this document we happen to be in right now, right? I'm going to go to it. I'm going to scroll down as an example, right? And I go to this section way at the end. Now, this all explains how CSA scores are calculated, right? But if I go to this last section, oops, sorry. Here's an example. Failures to secure load. Well, actually, let's do this one. Failure to place improper placement of warning devices on the road surface. If you have an emergency breakdown and you don't properly place your 3 triangles behind you as the regulation states, you will end up getting 2 points in your CSA. That's what this document says. It's 2 points. If you get a warning, that 2 points hurts your score. If you get a ticket, that 2 points hurts your score. However, if you get a citation and you go to court and get it dismissed, we can do a data queue and remove those 2 points. If you go to court and get it reduced to a lesser charge, then that 2 points will go to 1 point, right? So do you want 2 points to hurt your score or 1? If you have obscured lamps or reflectors, it would be 6 points. You get a ticket for that. You go to court, you get it reduced to something else, a lesser charge. We can make that 1 point. Now, if you fail to secure vehicle equipment, like a fire extinguisher or some other equipment, like a tire, or you have a driver view obstruction, those are 1 points. So going to court to get those reduced doesn't help you, because your 1 point will turn into 1 point, so it didn't benefit you. But if you go get a 1 pointer dismissed in court, then we can challenge it and get it removed. If you want to learn everything about citations, getting dismissed or reduced and how that applies, we're going to have a module on that. But that data analyst guide, the thing I just showed you a few seconds ago, chapter 5 of that analyst guide outlines everything you need to know about tickets versus warnings. What do we want to tell drivers? Sometimes we want to tell them a ticket's better than a warning, because then we can actually go to court. But then you asked a question, guy. If you don't have a citation, can you challenge the inspection? Yes. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I have a memo about language speaking enforcement. The memo is dated 2006 from the feds. It basically, in a nutshell, says this, and I can provide this memo to anybody that wants it. Just email me. Send a chat here in this function that you want this memo, and I'll send it. I have example data queues for it, right? It says if you use a translator or any kind of tool to help complete the inspection, you should not be violated. So if you use a translator app, or you call a translator, or you use cue cards to help you speak the language, and that assists you enough to complete the inspection, they can't violate you for not speaking English. So even if you get a warning and the officer says, use the translator, they're not supposed to violate you for that. So last week, I did a data queue for a company in Ohio, and the officer said driver had to use a translator to complete the inspection. I simply attached the memo and said, the memo says if you use this, it's not a violation. I don't think the officer even knew the memo existed. So part of learning this stuff is to become educated, even more so than the officers themselves, right? What else did it say? If you didn't have a documented use of a tool like an app or anything else, it also says in the memo, as long as the driver can complete the inspection. Aha. So if you get a level 1 and they complete the inspection, clearly he spoke well enough to complete the inspection, or the inspection would have never been done. So by default, that should get thrown out too, right? It actually says in the memo, the driver is not required to read, speak, or understand and communicate English. All he has to do is communicate well enough to complete the inspection. So you see what I'm saying, Guy? In a nutshell, because I have the memo and I can read it and I can put a data queue together in a succinct way, I can challenge warnings and get those removed. So this company's got their renewal in January. They had 7 language violations. They called me. I did 7 data queues quick. They got 4 of them approved already. 3 of them are still pending. They're going to get out of the alert in the CSA category because we're removing these driver fitness violations, which are language speaking. So in a nutshell, tickets are better than warnings. They both have the same effect. But if we're smarter than them, we can challenge some of these through the data queue and be victorious. Fair enough?
So why the police officer would give you more warnings instead of citations? What do they benefit from that? And because sometimes drivers do ask, give me the citation, and because they are paying extra for lawyers that they are in every state and they know they can remove it, but still they are getting the warnings instead of citations.
Yep. And here's what you get at Trucking Wins and with me, right? And you guys that do insurance, you know, you get the truth. Here's how it goes. There are some officers in the United States of America that completely understand that if you go to court and get it dismissed or reduced, it reduces the effect on their CSA. And quite frankly, those officers don't like it. So they write you warnings on purpose, knowing that you can't go to court and get them reduced or dismissed. There's actually a state patrol guy I know. He trains the inspectors. If you don't want them to get this dismissed and removed from the score, you want it to hurt their CSA, write warnings. If you want to write a ticket for a 1-point violation, or write a ticket for violations that don't affect the CSA. For example, let's say we get pulled over and we get an overweight, and we also have a false log and we have a speeding, and the officer wants to write 1 ticket to make them pay for being non-compliant. Smart officers that don't like this whole ticket reduction system will write the driver up for the overload because it doesn't hurt your CSA scores. So even if you go to court on the overload and get it dismissed, so it didn't affect your CSA anyway. If he writes you a warning for the overload and a speeding ticket, well, then you can go to court and get it reduced. So there is, as unfortunate as it is, there's an us against them mentality. And there's a lot of cops out there that would rather stick it to the motor carrier just because they can. So those officers will purposely not write tickets for that very reason, to make it so it adversely affects the company's CSA score. So you can beg for all the tickets you want, and they're not going to give them to you.
Is there a way to file a complaint against an officer like that, to maybe even do a review on their background to see that they're abusing the system?
Well, let's talk about that. If the officer simply said, I'm not writing you a ticket because I hate the data queue system. If you had that documented, or you could articulate to that, then yes, he would get in trouble. But he ain't going to tell you that's why. He's just not going to write you a ticket and know in this back end that he's going to write you a warning. He's still enforcing the law. He's still writing violations. He's just not writing you a ticket. You know how in your car, if you speed, sometimes they give you a warning. Sometimes they give you a ticket. It's up to the officer if he wants to. Now, he shouldn't be communicating that the reason you didn't get one is because he thinks the ticket system is a bunch of bullharky, right? But ultimately, you're not going to get anywhere with a complaint just because he decided to write you a warning. You understand what I mean? It's unfortunate. It's just the way it is. Now, what I like about this is we're going to have driver training modules in here too, like mock driver meetings, things like that. We already have it with split sleeper. We already have it with personal conveyance and yard move. Those are training modules you can give to drivers. What is the intention on Trucking Wins to have the split sleeper 47-minute training module? The yard move 15 minute training module. the personal conveyance module, how to do a pre-trips coming soon. Why do we have those modules? Honestly, it's to educate drivers so we don't get violated in the first place. What do we care if they write us a warning or a ticket if we're doing everything right to start with, right?